It's here. It is time for the national championship game. The Indiana Hoosiers taking on the Miami Hurricanes. Wow, I can't believe this is the game that we end up with for the national championship. The team that nobody wanted to believe in against the team that nobody, well, I can't say nobody, a lot of people thought shouldn't even be in the college football playoffs. And they're the two teams left standing, and they will play Monday night in Miami, Florida for a national title. We're going to break it down because we're going to look at Indiana player by player, position by position. What are going to be some of the key points in this football game? And we're going to talk about how they match up against Miami and what are the Hurricane strengths. What type of game has to be played out for Miami to win? What type of game has to be played out for Indiana to win? All of that coming up on the show. I am Brett Rump. You have found the Sports Rush. We are on YouTube sometimes once a week, sometimes more than once a week, but you should always be connected to us by subscribing and by clicking the like button so that YouTube knows that this is one of the videos or one of the channels that you do want to watch, because that's all about algorithms. That's what it's all about. And so we want our help, and you can do it for us. It's very simple. It's free to do. You're not going to get a bunch of emails or solicitations. All we want is to get your vote of confidence, because we do this every week. We jump on here usually about an hour. Last week it was a little longer than that. We'll see how that goes tonight. But one part of the show that actually does dictate how long we go, it is the feedback. And so I'm checking comments right now. Ryan Eaton, our buddy up in LaGrange, already weighing in, saying that he loves the background. It is Hard Rock Stadium in South Florida, and that is the site of the national championship game. So tomorrow night, all eyes will be right there on Hard Rock Stadium. And if you don't know where it is, it's kind of halfway, almost halfway between downtown Miami and Fort Lauderdale. Kind of. I mean, it's north of Miami, closer to Fort Lauderdale than the other direction, which would take you down toward Homestead, where they have the racetrack and that, but or down to the Keys. But anyway, glad to have you on board, and of course, we would love to have your comments, your thoughts about who's going to win tomorrow night's game. Oh, what a day it has already been, because the Purdue Fort Wayne Mastodons impressively have won their fourth straight game. They got the win against Milwaukee out at the Gates Center today. Mastodons played really well, and one individual played particularly well. Mikhail Stevenson lit up the scoreboard for 34 points. He also had 6 assists. I joked that he was passing out the water during timeouts. He did not have a turnover. I thought he played well within the structure of the offense. The Milwaukee defense was not going to give Max Nelson threes. They were not going to give Hadnot a finish at the rim. And they were collapsing on both DeAndre Craig and CJ Hadnot. And the result of it was that Mikhail Stevenson was getting some looks from three, and he buried them. He made the most of his three-point shots. 34 points for Mikhail Stevenson. Then you had DeAndre Craig, who finished with 20. CJ Hadnot with 19, as those three combined for 73 points. And the Mastodons put a hundo up on the Milwaukee Panthers. Mastodons win it by a final of 100-82. And so Purdue Fort Wayne gets their 12th win of the year. They're now 12-8. They are now 6-3 in the Horizon League. I got to check the standings, because today we had Green Bay getting beat. Now I think that's Green Bay's third loss, and try to figure this all out, sort it out. I haven't had a chance to even look since I got back from the game. But let's go ahead and take a quick look at the Horizon League standings. Green Bay got beat today at home to Oakland 88-63. So now if we look at the standings, it is Wright State 7-1, Oakland 7-2, and then Green Bay and Purdue Fort Wayne both at 6-3, tied for third. So the Mastodons in a good position because Wright State is 2 games up on them, and the Mastodons have Wright State still on their schedule twice before the end of the year because they have not played the Wright State Raiders. Strange scheduling. Mastodons will have played, 2 teams, 3 teams, 3 teams twice before they play Wright State, 2 teams twice. And they won't even have played Wright State the first time. And then they finished the season with Wright State. So it's 2 Wright State meetings coming up. And those 2 games could go a long way in deciding if the Mastodons are in the running to win a Horizon League Conference Championship. They're 1 game behind Oakland, but the Mastodons have a meeting at home against Oakland. So they got Oakland at home. They've got Wright State at home and on the road. And those are the only 2 teams above them in the standings. Coming up this week, Detroit Mercy, who right now is 5-4 in the league, and IU Indy, who got their first win of the season in the Horizon League this past week. They are 1-9. Those are the next 2 opponents for the Mastodons, and both of those games back on the road. Today was kind of a strange day because the Mastodons came home, played against Milwaukee, and then they're right back on the road for 2 more next week. So it's 2 on the road, then the home game after a bye, and then 2 road games again next week. So once the Dons get through this 4 out of 5 game stretch where they have games on the road, they'll be at home, I think, 3 in a row or 3 out of the next 4. One of the questions coming in, how many teams make the Horizon League tournament? All of them. The next question, how long do you think Gottlieb lasts? Gottlieb's doing fine. There's no problem with what's going on in Green Bay. A tough first season, that's almost to be expected. He decided in December to give up the radio show and make the coaching his full-time, 100% focused profession. And Green Bay is much improved. So as of right now, it's working. Would it have worked if you continued to do the radio show and the coaching? No, there was not a chance. Something was going to fail. And I think what was perhaps left behind a little bit because of the amount of time it requires was the coaching. It's an unbelievable schedule to be a college basketball coach. It's not just show up at practice, have a couple of hours of your day on the practice court, and maybe watch a little film at night. No, it is 24/7. You're meeting with players. You're reviewing things that they did or didn't do, what they need to do to improve. You're meeting with your assistant coaches to go over each of the players and what you expect as far as player development. You're going over meetings with your scout coaches to try to get a breakdown on personnel for your next game. You're organizing and structuring your practice. You're talking to donors. You're meeting with your athletic director. It is a grueling schedule. And on top of that, you're still recruiting. I know there's not a lot of freshman recruiting as much going on, but you still have to recruit. So you still have to be able to get out and catch some of the area players or some of the players you're interested in recruiting. And if you're trying to do a radio show every day, it's going to get in the way. And so anyway, coming up on the show, we've got a lot of breakdown of Indiana versus Miami. How pumped up are we? Are we going to watch this game at home, or are we going to go out and watch it with others, whether that's at an establishment, a restaurant, a sports bar, or whether that is a party or a gathering of other like-minded Indiana Hoosiers fans? And The big question is, if you're in the state of Indiana, are you loyal to the Indiana Hoosiers? Are you supporting the Hoosiers even if the Hoosiers are not your team? That's where I feel like I am. I always like to see the Indiana schools do well. I can't say that Indiana is my favorite team. I don't know that I have a huge favorite. I've leaned Purdue just because of some recruiting when I was in high school. Purdue was recruiting some of our high school athletes, and Indiana wasn't. And so I kind of became loyal to Purdue at that time. But Indiana's the state I've grown up in, that I've lived my life in. I've lived in Michigan shortly. I've lived in Illinois for a short period and have a house in Florida. But I tell you this, I did not swing to being a Miami Hurricanes fan. Now I am a Florida Panthers fan. Didn't buy into the Miami Heat. Still an Indiana Pacers fan. But when it comes to hockey, Indiana doesn't have an NHL team, so I kind of enjoyed going and seeing a local NHL team and started following the Florida Panthers when they were very average. Now, they weren't bad when we started going to games, but they were very average. They were a 500 team. And then they started picking up a couple of players. And of course, when they got Kachuk, it really turned the corner. And now, Florida back to back Stanley Cup championships. Once again, Ryan saying he'll be listening to Don Fisher. And if you do want to listen to the game in the Fort Wayne area, it's going to be on our sister station, 92.3 FM, which is the FM for WoWo. A lot of people, especially Notre Dame fans, are cheering for Indiana. I mean, I feel like people even that cheer for Purdue want to see the Big Ten do well. I mean, it's good for the conference if you've got a national championship. It's good for future scheduling. You can always play the defending national champion. You can only do that if the national champion is from your conference. And Ohio State, Michigan, now you've got another Big Ten team that's competing for a championship. I think it's a good thing for the conference to have Indiana playing for the national title. And I would have liked to have seen it be Indiana versus Ohio State, but Indiana gets Miami. What are some of the keys? What do we see as keys to this game? First of all, what has Indiana done well to this point in the playoffs? Number one, they have been able to run the football, and they're going to have to be able to run the football against Miami. Miami prides itself on its pass rush. I think it'll be very interesting to see if the pass rush is effective against Indiana, because Indiana's done a great job of protecting Mendoza. And even when they don't, because you can't, because they maybe rush more than you've got guys in to block, Mendoza has made good decisions on where to go with the football, and he's gotten rid of it quickly and avoided some of the devastating sacks. Those sacks where you lose 8 to 10 yards on a first or second down play, they're often devastating. They're drive killers. And Indiana's kind of avoided that. They've always avoided getting behind the sticks, so to speak. And so Indiana's got to be able to run the football, establish the run, and take some of the pressure off the passing game. Number two, avoid mistakes. Indiana has done that. They have not been a team that makes a lot of mistakes, or they do not do self-inflicted damage. They've not had bad penalties. They've not had a lot of careless turnovers, especially fumbles. And so everybody's got to take care of the football. And it starts with Fernando Mendoza. He's the one throwing it. He's the one that could get sacked. And he can't get strip sacked if he gets sacked. If you get sacked and it's a loss of 8 yards, it's a loss of 8 yards. If they sack you and strip the football away, now we start to have problems. It's like watching the NFL this weekend. My gosh, these teams aren't taking care of the football. You got to be able to take care of the football. And I think they said there were 8 combined turnovers in the Texans New England game, which right now is down to the last minute, and it's 28-16. But Houston is nope, they didn't get it. So Houston just turned it over on downs. So New England's going to win. So it'll be the Patriots and the Broncos. Just like everybody predicted before the season, Patriots and Broncos in the AFC Conference Championship game next week, and the Broncos will be without Bo Nix. Devastating for the Broncos. Although, I still think the Broncos can win. I think they're a complete enough football team, and they've got a good enough coach that they'll figure out a way to stay competitive, and they could possibly win a 16-13 game. That kind of crazy type, because both those teams, Patriots and Broncos, can really lock down defensively. So it could be a very low scoring game, and we'll see what happens. But CJ Stroud he's going backwards. What do you do with CJ Stroud if you're the Texans? Do you believe he's the franchise quarterback that can win you a championship? I don't know. After seeing today, by the way, Rick weighing in, wish all Mastodon games to be at the Gates Center. I'll tell you what a great atmosphere. And it is hard to play as a visiting team with that kind of energy and noise, and the Mastodons shoot the ball so well at the Gates Center. It's got the volume and the energy of a 4,000 or 5,000 person crowd when you only have 1,000 or 1,100 people in the building. The Dons historically play really well at the Gates Center, putting up 100 today. They hit 13 of 23 3-point shots. What is that, like 58% or something like that? 57, 58%. They were unbelievable. And that's, the whole thing is you want to win. You can show off by playing at the Coliseum and I guess, make the league happy if that's what's required. But the bottom line is the Mastodons are a better basketball team, and it's a lot more fun going to the games, a lot more convenient when the games are at the Gates Center. I'd like to see all the games at the Gates Center. I know that the switch to the Coliseum was in part to impress the Horizon League with this big 10,000 seat arena that is the designated home arena, made the program seem bigger than maybe it really is, although I think the program stands by itself and doesn't need the Coliseum. I would think the Horizon League would want to program with the quality, and this was all about basketball with the Horizon League. The other sports, whatever happens, happens. It's all about men's basketball. That's what the league is looking at. And I know the Horizon League preferred that the games be played at the Coliseum. The games were played at the Coliseum, but I think they've gone through enough time now that I'd love to see the whole schedule rather than having fans guessing where the game is going to be, or having fans pay parking on some and having the walk to the Coliseum and having one ticket price at the Coliseum versus the price at the Gates Center. The Gates has cheap concessions, free parking. It's very convenient. And it is a difficult atmosphere for a visiting team to come in and win. The Mastodons, you saw the energy they played with. They forced 12 turnovers. I think they had 11 steals. Just an impressive 100-82 win over Milwaukee today. And I'm right there with you, Rick. I wish every game was played there. Anyway, let's talk about the national championship game. Tomorrow night, Miami, Florida. Yeah, see, I'm pretending. I'm trying to give you all the idea that I'm broadcasting right now from outside Hard Rock Stadium. I'm not. I'm freezing my tail off right here in Northeast Indiana. And then the guy who is actually in Miami actually has a setup that makes it look like he could be in Indianapolis right now. But he's joining us. He's the host of Hoosier Tailgate, and he is an Indiana insider. He is also my partner for high school football broadcasts on 1380 The Fan. It is none other than the coach, Shannon Griffith. What's up, coach? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, you're not hearing it. I'll give you a chance to get caught up, get the volume, if you need. I can do that. Just give me a signal when you know you can hear everything. Um, he may need to reconnect. He's having trouble getting the audio. But anyway, um, yeah, you can't trust the ESPN app with anything on the schedule. I think it lists all the games as being as home site being the Memorial Coliseum for the Mastodons. I don't think they even know that the Dons play some of their games. If you want to know where the game is, you have to go to gomastodons.com, go to men's basketball, look at the schedule. That will tell you if it's at the Gate Center or if it's at the Coliseum. I do know the next Dons home game is going to be at the Gate Center against the Oakland Golden Grizzlies, which will be a lot of fun. Somehow, it seems like the Mastodons play Oakland at the Gate Center about every other year, and always a fun game with a tremendous atmosphere. But but anyway, no, we want to talk about that. I am faking Shannon Griffith, who's hopefully going to be joining us here in a moment. Um, it He is actually in Miami. He went down for the game. He's doing special podcast. I think he's doing a podcast later tonight that you can check out at Hoosier Tailgate, and and I hope all of his technical stuff is working when he does his own show. But I think we've got him connected. Coach Griffith, what's up?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Well, the
That's
funny
even more
thing is, I
important.
was joking before, and I said, you look at the picture, and the guy who is not in South Florida is trying to make it look like he is in South Florida. And the guy that's in Florida, other than the golf shirt, the guy who's in Florida could be broadcasting from a hotel room in downtown Indianapolis, and you'd never know it. But just to be clear, you are in Miami.
Yes, I'm looking out the window right now to the beautiful waterways that are in Miami.
What kind of a suite is that? You know, there's usually
Uh,
not windows on two walls. You're a corner room, man. Did they take care of you?
yeah, corner room, king size bed, 75-inch TV. I mean, hey, I've got it made.
Wow, man. Yeah, so must be your work you're doing with the Indiana Hoosiers, and what a great thing! You start the podcast, and then Indiana brings in Kurt Signetti, and it makes your podcast a big hit because you're following one of the great sports stories in the history of sports. You're following a team that is undefeated and a chance to make some very unique history tomorrow night, and just a team that I think fans can embrace. You know, it's a team that's easy to fall in love with. They're a bunch of, blue collar guys that weren't the prima donnas coming out of high school. A lot of them were not the guys that there was an NIL bidding war on, so they weren't chasing the dollar. These were guys that wanted to play football and have some success doing it, play together on a common mission. It really is a team that I think is very easy to root for, Griff.
Yeah, I guess you could say they're kind of the darlings of the country right now with what they've been able to do and Coach Signetti. And it's just one of those storylines that because Indiana football has not been ever viewed in this light, it's captured everything from A to Z in terms of those that have followed Indiana for years, especially those ticket holders that have done it for 30 and 40 years that are actually here at the national championship game, getting ready to go watch them play tomorrow night, not thinking they would ever be able to see something on this scale in their lifetime, which is kind of a neat thing to see from that perspective. But yeah, I think that you hit it on the head as it pertains to the overall storylines and the success that Signetti's brought to Bloomington, and that, for that matter, the state of Indiana, because I would have to say that most of the state of Indiana is now Hoosier fans.
All year long, Griff, we have talked about this team not getting the national respect. Nobody wanted to give full credit to Indiana, and I think part of that was because it's Indiana. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
knows the history. It must be the schedule. They must be playing soft teams. Whatever reason they gave, they just did not want to give Indiana the benefit of the doubt that they were truly among the elite teams in the country this year. Has the national media finally bought in? Are they 100% sold that this Indiana team's legit?
Yeah, I do think they do so now. I think they speak of Indiana in completely different terms than they did maybe a month, 6 weeks ago when it came close to the college football playoffs. Of course, you had this week's, I guess you call it Twitter thoughts and reasons why Indiana is winning is because they cheat. Now that's entered the mode of conversation. It, they can't be this can't be Indiana winning all these games. They have to be cheating somehow, some way, and that was the last thing that was going on around this week. But as far as the national media is concerned, I think they have earned that respect, and they've done so by doing it the last 2 weeks, where they've basically blown out the two teams that they were facing in the college football playoffs.
Griff, they didn't only win games on the field, they won them in the seats. The fan
Mm-hmm.
base was unbelievable at the Rose Bowl and at the Peach Bowl. Now they go to Miami to take on the Hurricanes in the Hurricanes' home stadium. I'm curious what the turnout is going to be like. I talked to my wife. Of course, she is a South Florida resident,
Mm-hmm.
and she informed me that there were big gatherings of people at the restaurants in Sunrise, Florida, which is almost closer to her than it is to the stadium. She said the whole restaurant is filled with people wearing Indiana jackets and coats and colors and T-shirts, whatever. What are you seeing? What are you expecting?
About the same thing that she saw, especially on all the flights that were even heading out of Fort Wayne when I flew out on Saturday morning through my connection in Dallas and then getting off here in Miami. A trove of Indiana fans have made their way to South Florida. I'm going to guess that there'll probably be at least 65% of Hard Rock Stadium will be filled with Indiana fans, maybe more if the price of a ticket comes down quite substantially. They'll, that maybe creep up. But as it pertains to those that have made the trip, irregardless of the game itself, I'd say that Indiana is very well represented in Southwest Florida, not just from those that are from the north, but from all over the country.
You got there yesterday, in full disclosure. Got there after media day, so you didn't partake in all the interviews with all the different players and stuff. But what have you been able to witness? What has been your schedule?
Oh,
Were you able to catch a practice? Did you have a chance
right.
to sit in with the coaches? What have you done since you arrived yesterday afternoon?
Well, today was the quote unquote last media uh, conference with the two coaches this morning, and was able to go to that. And you could summarize it probably like any presser for coaches. You could tell they were ready for the pomp and circumstance to be over with, and they could get back to getting prepared for the game on Monday night, especially with today and tomorrow being the last two times that they'll have a chance to really hone in on the field what they need to accomplish on Monday night. So you could tell that from the presser today, as well as Indiana's last practice. Now, press was not allowed at the practice today, which I was kind of surprised. But again, they pretty much keep them under lock and key down here once they get into the venues and such. So, but today was the big presser before the game, and I'd say both coaches didn't, uh, you know, give us any earth-shattering details or anything like that. They were pretty, close to the vest, stoic in the way they responded to certain questions, but you could tell that they were ready to get to the game as opposed to sitting in another presser.
You know, Griff, sometimes at the Super Bowl, the teams, the participants, they stay at hotels that are actually a little ways away from all of the fan atmosphere so that they're not kept up. The fans don't congregate outside the hotel and they don't get distracted, right? They go and isolate. Are the Hoosiers staying at the same hotel they started with on Friday night? Are they right? It's from what I've gathered, it's right in downtown Miami.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that where they're going to stay tonight?
that is my understanding. Of course, they don't necessarily give out their travel arrangements 24 hours before the game, but they have still been at their, I would say, their headquarter hotel. Uh, that's where they took their last practice buses from today to go to the practice facility up at Florida International. Have not heard anything other them changing a hotel prior to the game or not. So I couldn't tell you one way or the other there. And quite honestly, I'm not even sure what Miami does because they're in their own backyard and they're using their own practice facilities. So I got to feel that they've probably been able to live in their own houses and sleep in their own beds for the last week or so leading up to game on Monday. So they've kind of have an advantage in that respect.
Isn't it customary that for most of the big time programs, that even for a home game, the team congregates at a hotel the night before
Mm-hmm.
rather than stay in their own beds and meet next morning for breakfast? They usually will collectively go to an area hotel. Is
Yeah,
that customary?
yeah, I would say that's what Miami will do to get them off the campus, get them off campus and away from the hoopla, so to speak. As like I said, as far as Indiana is concerned, I have not heard anything changing from their headquarter hotel, but I'm not sure Signetti would tell anybody if he was in that
All
respect.
right, so we got to talk about this Indiana team. Um, First of all, first question before we get into breakdowns and all. Um, Indiana is trying to make history and become the first college football team to go 16-0. And who'd have thought the losingest program in all of college football would be the first one to actually do that if Indiana is successful tomorrow night? Not making any assumptions, but as far as uh, that storyline of what Signetti has done is I'm absolutely sure. I mean, you can go back through all the record books. This is historic when it comes to college football. I believe it is historic when it comes to college basketball. I think there have been Cinderellas, but they weren't sustainable. They weren't necessarily at the same parallel as when the coach was changed, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in all of sports, and we've talked about this, Griff, is there any sport or any story that you could use as a gauge or a comparison to what this Indiana team has done?
Football wise, no. Unless you want to say what was it, the Dolphins that went undefeated and won the Super Bowl? Was that 72 maybe? I can't
Yep,
remember back in those
72
days.
Dolphins, Bob Greasy, Larry Zonka,
Yeah,
yeah, Mercury
but
Morris.
but not
Brad
a team.
Warfield.
Yeah, but not a team that had been in the bottom of most of its football playing days, not in the top, half of a league, to flipping the script like Indiana has. I just don't think there's been that magnitude of a turnaround that we've seen in sports. Uh,
The only one, Griff, and sorry to interrupt, but the only one
mhm.
I think of is the Mets of 1969.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. That's the only thing I could think of as myself was the amazing Mets, as it was
Yeah.
known then. Yeah,
And
that
of
would be
course,
a good one to
you
look at.
you were in diapers at that time.
I was two.
Yeah. I was in diapers as well.
Yeah, we both were,
I was 5.
but still in diapers.
Yeah. Um, anyway, all right, let's talk about Fernando Mendoza. That's where we've got to start when we look at this football game. As the Indiana quarterback has been unbelievably spectacular through the first 2 playoff games. Does he need to have that type of performance for Indiana to beat Miami?
um, I do think he's going to have a performance that he's been having. Not to say that he needs to carry the full weight of the team on his shoulders, because I do think Indiana has a really good ground game that they've been able to show in their last 2 college football playoff games. But Fernando's going to have to make some plays, just like he has in every game that they've played in. The biggest thing is making the correct play and staying away from the big mistake. That is the thing that Fernando's going to have to be very diligent in his progressions and things of that magnitude, because Miami's defense is a very good defense, and they have 2 elite rushers off the edge, probably no better than Bain, who is a stellar pass rusher. The 2 tackles for Indiana are going to have their hands full with those guys. But Miami likes to do a lot of simulated pressure stuff, very closely to what Indiana does defensively. So that's where Fernando's going to have to make decisions after snap and not have the pre-snap read be his final thought process, because it's going to change.
I think that's one area where this game kind of rides is Indiana is going to have to neutralize the pass rush, not with blocking schemes or anything else, because it's an individual talent. Bain is so individually good that when he's playing at high energy with a high motor, he's going to get in there. I mean, he just finds
Mm-hmm.
ways. But I think Indiana can neutralize the pass rush by having a really strong running game.
Right.
When you're not 3rd and 8, the guys don't pin their ears back as much.
Mm-hmm.
And so Indiana, I think, needs to be able to establish the run. Can they run on Miami's defense?
Well, I do think they can run the ball against Miami, even though statistically it's shown that they're only giving up like 85 yards of rushing per game. So, but I do think Hemby and Black are 2 running backs that have the ability to bang with any defense and still be productive in gaining yards, like they have through the first 2 weeks of the playoffs, as well as they did during the season. Um, I do think that that's one thing that Indiana will be able to do better than what Texas Tech did, in some respects, better than even what Ohio State did in that game. But um, you're correct. Indiana has to have a running game that is efficient to stay out of those 3rd and long situations, because that's when Miami really likes to tune it up in their scheme and stuff and create havoc that leads to big sacks and lost yardage.
I want to ask about the secondary for Miami and the coverage of the Indiana receivers. If I'm an opposing defensive coordinator against Indiana, I really simplify coverages and I say, Surratt, play him even on his back shoulder. We're not afraid of him beating us over the top deep. Cooper, we want to take away the middle. He likes to make most of his plays somewhere over the middle of the field. And then Charlie Becker, play him over the top. If they back shoulder Becker, fine. We'll give him 8 or 10 yards, but we're not going to give him the 40-yard play. That's how I cover them. How close am I to earning an honorary coach position on the Miami defensive staff?
Well, you better call up Coach Cristobal and see if that's what he's thinking as it pertains to how to cover this Indiana wide receiver room. I think everyone has tried about every way to cover Indiana, only to have that uh, thought process be broken at some point in time in the games that Indiana's played. There was a big like get in their face and keep them off the line of scrimmage, and then Indiana found ways to beat them down the field, and then they play off, and Indiana's RPO game kind of took over in some games. So the thing that Fernando's done better, especially last week, was throwing the back shoulder fade that he hit Surratt with some contested throws with in that game. And prior to that, he really hadn't thrown a lot of back shoulders throws because I don't think he was necessarily comfortable with that throw. So now it does look like that is a viable option for him. And there's nobody better than Becker and Surratt in contested throws, and even Cooper you could throw into that category. So it will be interesting to see how they play them, especially when they like to do some of their pressure stuff. And that's going to be the situation where are they going to show up in your face, man, and bail a lot? Or are they going to, like you said earlier, stay in that middle ground where you're not going to give them free reign and try to get a hand on them within that first 5 yards of release and just to disrupt the route? That's going to be the big question on how Miami decides to handle this offensive passing attack by Indiana.
Let's talk about Miami's offense against Indiana's defense. Can Indiana's defensive front find a way to contain Fletcher? He's been having a terrific playoff run. He's a really good back, but Indiana also has been pretty solid against the run with that front seven. I think they've got the best linebackers in the country, and I think Indiana can stop them. But what say you?
Yeah, they're going, Miami's a team that uses the passing game to essentially set up the run game because they're a very pass heavy football team with Carson Beck. So Indiana is going to have to be able to get them off schedule, and especially with, Carson Beck not allowing him to just sit back there and get free reign. But as it pertains to the run game, I do like the matchup of Indiana's defensive line and linebackers against the Miami front. I do not necessarily think the Miami offensive line is as good as Indiana has faced. They got some big guys that like to lean on you a lot because that's what they like to do is pass pro. But they're going to have to figure out ways to convince Indiana in terms of being able to get pressure on Beck. What does that look like from the get-go? Because I do think they're going to throw the ball to try to beat Indiana and let the running game kind of complement the pass game. And then their screen game is pretty dynamic as well, especially with number 10 standing outside there, who is lined up as a receiver, but they get the ball to him so many different ways, and he is really fast.
Yeah, he's the freshman, and I'm trying to think of his name, right?
Malachi Tony.
Yeah,
Malachi
Tony.
Tony. Yeah.
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 So how do you disrupt the passing attack? I mean, there's different theories on what you might have to do. Do you try to man up? Do you try to just play zone coverages? Is there a way to get pressure? Do you have to blitz? What is the answer to trying to disrupt? You may not be able to stop it entirely, but disrupt Miami's passing attack.
Well, like I said, I do like Indiana's defensive line against this offensive line for Miami. So I do think they can get pressure with their 4 down defensive linemen and doing some of the things that they've done all year with their twisting game and things like that, then using their simulated pressures to get guys free. That's what Brian Haynes predominantly is in terms of his philosophy is he's going to find ways to exploit your protection and then try to figure out where he can get a guy loose, and that's where they're going to attack. As far as the secondary is concerned, he has been a predominantly zone coverage defensive coordinator. They very seldom do they play straight man across the board. So I would be shocked in some respects that they would go to some type of man free or true man as a option to try to defend back in this wide receiver room that Miami has, especially with the Malachi Tony kid, because they're going to have to use some leverage on him with underneath over the top type of coverage so that they limit his window of opportunity, because if they get that kid the ball in space, he is very tough to bring down.
Maybe it's just me, but hasn't Indiana used a coverage where they've trusted Pons man to man but played zone around him?
Yeah, they've done that some, especially on the backside of a 3-by-1 set, where it's truly a one-on-one on the backside receiver. That's, I wouldn't say that's an uncommon thing that you would see. I haven't seen much teams use the 3-by-1 as much as some teams did. Miami, I think, is more comfortable in their 2-by-2 sets than they are 3-by-1 sets. But I look for Miami to do a lot of what we call reducing the formation, or bunching receivers up and bringing them in tighter to really soften the coverage by Indiana in some respects, especially in down and distance situations. So that's going to be the uniqueness of this game, is what will that game between coordinators look when you talk about the chess game that will go on and how they try to handle whatever's being displayed in front of them. How do they adjust to make themselves in a better advantage against that defense? So that's the game within the game that will be interesting to watch as this game develops so far this week, as well as into the game on Monday night.
I don't know if you're making any kind of true prediction or if you've made one. I haven't heard it yet, but give us your breakdown. What's this game come down to? What kind of game do you expect? Offense, defense?
Mm-hmm.
How close is it? And do you have a final prediction?
Yeah, well, I think the one big thing that kind of struck me, Indiana has yet to face any adversity in these first 2 weeks, two games in the college football playoffs, as they've won pretty handedly, where Miami has faced that adversity, especially against Texas A&M on the road, and then, of course, against Ole Miss last week, where they had to have a last-minute drive to get the win, and that's Carson Beck's running the ball into the end zone. So there's some dynamics there to keep an eye on. How does Indiana respond if there is that adversity in this game? You would assume that there will be. But I do think overall, Indiana has a complete ball club. I like the way their special teams are playing. Of course, their defense has been lights out, and their offense, with the established running game that they've been able to do here, I like their chances in this ball game, and I do like them to win and go undefeated and bring home the national championship. I do think it's going to be a 34-27 type of game if I had to put a number to it. And it may be closer than that. Now, I've heard already people saying that the 8.5 points that Indiana is giving in this game is too large of a spread. So I know a lot of bettors that are taking the points and Miami just for that reason.
It's a lot of points for a championship game. So we'll see what happens, Griff. Appreciate the time. What's your next podcast?
I'm going to be on tonight at 7:30 to kind of do a little pregame primer of the game and the matchup, because tomorrow everybody will be heading to the stadium quite early down here because of the traffic patterns, and I guess the president is going to make an appearance. So going to have to make sure that we get to the stadium in a earlier time period than you normally would. But then again, we'll find out and see what happens.
Well, if you're doing a podcast at 7:30, you can use my set here at Hard Rock Stadium, Griff, if you'd like to. I'll get out of the way. I'll get out of the way and let you jump in.
I go with the natural ambiance behind me.
It's beautiful. Thanks,
All
Griff.
right.
Enjoy the
We'll
game.
see you.
We'll follow your coverage. Where are you at on Twitter? Just tell everybody.
You can find me at Hoosier Tailgate for Indiana coverage, as well as Coach Griff 55. And tonight it'll be on X. The show will be on X on my Twitter handles, as well as the Hoosier.com.
All right. Appreciate you, man. Enjoy your stay down in Florida.
Absolutely. See ya.
That is Coach Hannah Griffith joining us from South Florida. Yeah, I'm a big fake here. That It's like an AI image. It looks like Hard Rock Stadium. It is Hard Rock Stadium, but I'm not really sitting outside Hard Rock Stadium. I don't know if I fooled anybody anyway. All right, got some comments that came in. Let's see what we got. Um, Trying to get this to move. Let's see if I can move it. From Willie Osborne, Miami will win their sixth national championship. Oh, will win their sixth national championship 2026. So we got a Miami fan that's jumped in on us here. What else do we have that came in on the comments? Ryan weighed in, said a lot of screens and check downs? Question mark. Get the ball out quickly. I'm assuming that is for IU, for Mendoza, to avoid the sack, get the ball out quickly. But anyway, make sure you subscribe. We would appreciate all of you clicking the subscribe button on YouTube. Also, you can click the like. And if you want to catch up with any time we're going live, then you do want to click the bell and you can get your alerts so you know when we are live and you can jump in and tune in every time we talk Indiana sports, especially with the national championship game coming up tomorrow night. I think Indiana gets it done. Indiana's the best football team. They've proved they're the best football team throughout the entire year, and they have gotten better as the year has gone on. That's the Curt Cignetti way, the way he has approached this season, the way he has approached the playoffs. I think Indiana is prepared to play a good game in the championship. I don't think they'll be rattled by all of the pressures of a national championship. And let's face it, some of this pick might be a little bit of bias because yes, I'm in Indiana, and I would love nothing more than to see the final chapter written and make this kind of the perfect ride off into the sunset story. And it seems like this entire book would just be ripped to shreds and the whole storyline would go away if Indiana falls in the national championship. We don't want that. We want history. We love history in this country, and the history is going to be Indiana finishing the job and getting the victory. I think they've got the best quarterback between the two. No disrespect to Carson Beck. It's just Fernando Mendoza has been consistent. He's a great leader. This is a cohesive group that really wants to win it for one another. And I think this is a storyline that would be very disappointing if Indiana doesn't finish the job. And so I've got Indiana winning this game. I think it's very much along the lines of what they've done the last couple of weeks. I don't think they blow them out like Alabama, but Alabama was the one team I thought didn't deserve a spot in the playoffs. But I thought they would beat Oregon by a couple of touchdowns. And I think that's where they're at against Miami. I'm going to go with the same exact score I gave for the Oregon game. It turned out that Indiana dominated Oregon much more than I expected. So I'm just going to give you the same score I gave last week. 34-20. Indiana over Miami, and Indiana will be the national champion. All right, Friday night had high school basketball. I want to real quick just give a shout out to Maya Epps. Unbelievable performance for Maya Epps. 42 points. Seemed like she couldn't miss from the field. She was hot behind the three-point line. She had 3 or 4 assists that were just beautiful dimes, finding teammates. And tomorrow night, or Tuesday night rather, huge game, girls basketball. If you ever want to see what current girls basketball at the high school level is about, this is a game you must see. It's at Warsaw. little bit of a drive for people in Fort Wayne, but it is Homestead at Warsaw Tuesday night at the Tiger Den. Unbelievable. Two of the top teams in the state, number one versus number four. These are two teams that I would say could meet for a state championship, but they can't meet for a state championship because they're both in the north. But it's going to be one heck of a regular season game coming up on Tuesday night. Just wish it was a weekend game. Just a shame that the schools and the teams couldn't find a way to get this game scheduled on a weekend. But it's going to be Tuesday night at Warsaw. Homestead, Warsaw should be outstanding. Once again, Mastodons winners today, 100-82. I have to throw in too. Purdue Fort Wayne had 98, and they were going to dribble the clock out, and they're up 16 points. Right? Seconds remaining. I mean, you're talking about less than 10 seconds. The clock's ticking down. Purdue Fort Wayne wanted to just dribble it out, but Milwaukee kept chasing them all over the half court. And so they kept dribbling, weaving around. Can you believe Milwaukee actually fouled down by 16 points with like 4 seconds left to give Purdue Fort Wayne 2 free throws with 98 points on the board? Thank you. It's always kind of neat to see the board go to 100. And it wouldn't have. The Dons were not going to shoot. But for some reason, Milwaukee came out and fouled. And they fouled intentionally. This way, it wasn't an accident. They didn't just bump into somebody. No, they came out and fouled. And sure, thank you. Take the 2 free throws, and it's a 100-82 win. The Dons hit the century mark, and the Dons have now won 4 straight conference games. They've won 4 straight games overall, 2 of those on the road. And this is a basketball team that Coach Kaufman said when the season started, it's not about how you start, it's how you finish, and that this team needs to just keep getting better as the year goes on, because the team that's going to represent their Horizon League in the NCAA tournament is the team that progresses the most in January and February. And right now, the Dons are in a very good trajectory. They're playing good basketball. They played a terrific game today in a fun atmosphere at the Gates Center, and they get an 18-point home court win. They're on the road at Detroit on Wednesday. Always tough to win on the road in conference play. And then they'll be at IU Indy coming up on Sunday afternoon, next Sunday, 1 week away. So I know we won't be doing a show at 6 o'clock next Sunday because I'll be traveling. But keep an eye on Twitter or X to keep up with when our show will air. And that's why it's very important that you always have that alert set and that you subscribe to our channel, so you know when we are having our shows. We post shorts and videos throughout the week, and you can keep up on with those as well. Once again, thank you so much for joining us for this edition of the Sports Rush. I am Brett Rump. Looking forward to talking to you again soon. And Hoosiers, go IU.